Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Let me just do this real quick. Perfect. Welcome everybody to another hack
Good
show.
evening, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility.
Okay, hang on. Let me get rid of that.
of
Rookie mistake after a year and 2 years of doing this. Anyways, welcome everybody to the show. So last week we did a show of myself and Pete Pardo and Martin, and we basically did an all Rush show. We talked about Rush, then we thought, you know what? Let's do a show where we pick our top 10 Rush albums, and I thought, who better to bring back to do the show than Pete? And then, of course, my buddy that's in my band with me, Rebel Charm, Mike, huge Rush fan. So I thought, what the hell? Let's bring those guys back in and let's talk some Rush top 10. So welcome, Mike and Pete, back to the show. How are you guys?
What's up, everybody? How are you?
Thanks, good buddy.
Good, man.
Actually, diehard Neil Peart fan as well.
Yes. Let me just say a quick hello to some of the people that are in here. Zach is with us. Welcome, Rebel Rocker, Music Therapy Laz. CK is with us. Brian S. Welcome, Fruitcake Tony. Alexander Rocker. There's a new name. Welcome, Roy Kefner, Dan in New Jersey. Fruitcake Tony is with us. Welcome, man. Louis Began Dumas, new name to the channel. Welcome so much. Going down the list here real quick. Hey, there's my buddy Bruce. Welcome, man. Toby Reese. Captain Beyond. Cool. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Much appreciated. So we're going to talk some Rush. Again, can you ever get enough of Rush? I can't.
No, never.
You know, I was saying to Pete last week, and Mike, you can chime in on this. Like, if you live in Toronto, there's three things, right? You gotta love hockey, and Mike's wearing his Maple Leafs hat. You gotta love Tim Hortons, and you gotta love Rush. And if not, they're gonna deport you. So Rush in Toronto, in the air, man. Mike, do you remember back when they used to play when they put out a new record? I don't know if you're young enough to remember this. Or old enough to remember this, I should say. You remember when they used to actually play the records on Q107 and the guys would come in and talk about every cut? You remember that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, actually, I have a couple of Rush ones on cassette somewhere. So, I also have all the years that Rush were on. Remember the show Rockline? Where you could call up? Yeah. So I think it's a 10 CD set of all the times Rush was on Rockline.
Now that's a fact. Like I said,
I haven't even told you about my bootleg DVDs yet. So.
Oh, now you're killing me. So, like I said, Mike's a Rush fan. Well, now it's like that was an understatement. All right. So I thought we'd go around the table today and just talk about what our top 10 Rush records were. But before I get into that, I don't know. I was saying to Pete yesterday. I mean, oh my God, this was like what's that word? Herculean task.
Herculean.
Thank you. Yeah, my English not so good, but crazy, man. This was hard. This is like literally you're taking half their records and you're putting them to the side. I had a hell of a time. What about you guys? How was it putting your list together?
Well, I mean, go ahead, Mike. You go first.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was telling you yesterday, Hack. I said, I did back in January. I did like a ranking the Rush album show on Sea of Tranquility, and the challenge here was like, and I say this all the time, it's like, well, here's how I'm ranking them today, but if you ask me next week or 2 months from now, the ranking might be totally different. So as I said to you, I was like, I'm going through the albums again, and I'm curious to see. So I put together my list, and then I went and rewatched my show from January, and the list was, well, I'm not going to say what the list was. You'll have to wait and see. But I was surprised more so that, okay, I got my 10. Oh, but wait about that one. But what about that one? But how about this one? And I'm like, this sucks, because when you do the whole catalog, it's like, all right, well, you have a place for everybody. But when you're only doing 10, you're obviously not mentioning the other 9 or 10 that there are, and it's almost like you feel bad, right? It's like, well, how can I leave? Man, I really like that album a lot. I feel bad about leaving it out. So, but it is what it is, right? So we do the best we can, and as I tell everybody, just because an album that you love does not make my top 10 does not mean that I don't love it as well. I just like these a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to say I love all the Rush albums, but yeah, I do have my favorite top 10. And there were a few that came in and out as well. And yeah, you'll probably be surprised at my picks. So looking forward to hearing yours.
Well, the funny thing is too, and I think this ties into whenever you do a top 10 list, I think a lot of it has to do is when you came into the band. That's really going to have an imprint, right? If you came in the 70s, you'll have certain favorites. If you came in the 80s or the 90s, then, that'll shift, right? So that's a big deal. The big surprise for me was like there are records that I just off the top of my head, oh yeah, that's in there. And then it turns out they didn't make the cut because there were other records that did. And then you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that's not in there. But anyways, all right. So without further ado, let's start. So I'm gonna go around the room here. So I'm going to start with Mike first. So Mike, what was your number 10 pick?
All right. So this is going to surprise probably a lot of people being a number 10, but I've got 2112.
Oh, all right.
Is that a good O?
No, that's that's a O of shock. Wow.
An O of shock, really?
Yeah, that came down it was 10 and not higher.
Oh, okay. Yeah, for me, again, it's the timestamp thing. I wasn't born at that point. Yeah, I was actually. But no, I just remember seeing the record as a kid, and I kind of revisited that album after I became a true Rush fan. So yeah, I love that record all the way through. I don't know, it's what can you say? It kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah.
I still remember there was an interview with Alex Lifeson, and I remember when he said he played the audio to Paul Stanley for the first time of 2112, and Paul was just like, I don't get it. Like he didn't understand. Like,
yeah.
But I don't know. For me, it's a classic album. I love listening to it, and it's my number 10.
I think there was Caress of Steel that he played for Paul, and Paul's like, "What the hell did you guys do?" But yeah,
there's so many hilarious stories with Rush and Kiss. So.
Oh yeah, Rush and Kiss, yeah, those early tours, yeah.
Yeah.
Pete, what's your number 10, man?
All right, my number 10. This album, if we would have had this discussion back like in, I don't know, 1990 or something, or late 80s, I don't think it would have made my top 10. Although, did they even have 10 albums out at that time? Well, whatever, it doesn't really matter. But I have liked this album more and more as I've gotten older. And in fact, like today, I had like 2 albums that were fighting for my number 10. And this one won out because, again, I think I really like this album a lot. Didn't like it when it first came out much, but it's Grace Under Pressure.
Oh, yeah.
I love that.
I mean, I love the textures on this album. The songs are really like melodic and majestic sounding. A lot of great hooks on the album. Yeah, it's not a heavy album, but it doesn't need to be. I mean, Jesus, Distant Early Warning, Sector A, the end within is great. The Body Electric.
I love that. Yeah.
I mean, just the whole album like really, really works. And it's like haunting and memorable. And it's like Rush embracing all the technology that they had at their disposal. I don't mind the keyboards on it. I miss a little bit the big riffs from Alex, but I think he's doing so many cool textures and colors on here that it doesn't really matter much. And I think Geddy is singing spectacularly on this album. So, yeah, you know what? This might even, it's funny because my number 9, I think the two of them are so neck and neck that I think maybe a year from now or whatever, this might even pass my number 9. And I really like my number 9 a lot. But this one has been a steady grower in my ranking for a number of years now. And I really like this album a lot. And I think it holds up really, really well.
Yeah, it's like we were last week's show, we were talking about, Alex, when he became, I mean, I don't want to say this derogatory, but kind of the secondary part player as opposed to like driving the songs. But the parts that he made up are just phenomenal. I mean, like that's what makes that record is for me, I'm always listening for the guitar. Right? So, and the guitar just really fleshes out those songs beautifully, man.
Yeah.
All right. So for my number 10, speaking of Alex, it's when Alex went back to playing guitar, and that's a Counterparts record. That's my number 10. Return to the heavy guitar. Got my notes here. Stick It Out, Animate, Nobody's Hero. Leave That Thing Alone, The Jam. That's a killer record. Counterparts. I love when they went back to the guitar. Not that I totally, dismissing the keyboard era, but when they went back to it, they came back to it with Alex had some fire in his belly, and he showed it on that record. So that's my number 10, Counterparts.
Great choice, great album.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. All right, let's go to Mike for number 9. What do you got?
All right, so my number 9 is Hemispheres.
Hemispheres.
I'm waiting for you to go, what?
What? Exactly. Well, you said I'd be surprised, and I've been surprised so far. Okay, so let's go on with Hemispheres.
I told you this is going to be really surprising. Again, it was an album that I discovered later on, and I don't know. I really like it. It fit in my top 10.
Yes,
So, yeah, okay. Well, if you're shocked at these, you're going to be shocked at my other picks, too. Keep in mind, I'm a little bit younger.
Yes.
So you'll see what I'm
And I
talking
told
about.
what? I kind of expected that because I know with the Kiss show we did a few weeks ago, it was kind of the same thing. So,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We're like the 70s fossils.
I'm older than a fossil. I'm a dinosaur dung.
So Hack, you got to see Dawn's comment in the chat. It's absolutely hilarious.
I was if Mike picks Presto as his number 1.
I have a good story about Presto.
Oh, you better have
you pick it for your number 1. You can tell us all about it.
No, number 1 for me. I'll cut to the chase. It's Feedback. No, I'm kidding. No. Okay.
Don't give it up just yet. Oh dear Lord. Okay.
Hey, somebody's got to stick out of the crowd, right? Like we can't all. be the
I
same.
hear you, buddy. I hear you.
We're all entitled to our opinions.
I love you, buddy. You know I love you. All right. What do you got for 9?
All right. I'm going to go with Signals in my number 9.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, great album, right? Great songs.
Oh, shit, yeah.
Great songs. Again, one of those albums at the time when it first came out, I was a little disappointed because it was like drastically less heavy than all the stuff that came before it. But I still really dug it anyway. I saw him on this tour. It was great. Rory Gallagher opened up for them. It was like, whoa, who's this Rory Gallagher guy, right? Back in whatever the year this was, 82, 83. But, looking back on it now, some really great songs. Subdivisions is an absolute classic. Analog Kid, Chemistry is so memorable. It's just a really, really great album. But I will say, like, this is the album I was talking about before, that I have a feeling that Grace Under Pressure is going to surpass this for me at some point, because I'm finding that I'm enjoying Grace Under Pressure these days a little bit more than Signals, but I'm giving Signals the number 9 slot because it's got a little more history with it, and I'm not quite there yet for the leapfrog effect, but it might be coming.
Yeah, I could see where those two records, because they're kind of similar in their tone, or they could be almost interchangeable, right? I can see that. All right, so for my number 9, Grace Under Pressure. And there's a record where, like, that point, like I was good with Rush up until Signals, and then I cashed out for a long time, and then I came back to them. And when I came back to them, it's like rediscovering all this new music, right? Because I mean, that whole '80s was a black hole for me. Well, anything after Signals, anyways. And then, like, man, there's some really good stuff that I missed out on. And Grace Under Pressure is just one of those records. I mean, it's got so many great cuts on it. You know, I wrote down, Distant Early Warning, After Image, Red Sector A, Between the Wheels, which is actually, that's a pretty heavy song for that record, I thought.
Mhm.
But yeah, man, Grace Under Pressure, that's a great record. I put it up there like you were saying, Pete. I mean, that's neck and neck with Signals for me. So
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Uh-oh.
I'm just kidding, though. I'm just kidding.
All right, what's your number? What are we at here? Number 8.
Man, really, Grace Under Pressure, eh?
Yeah.
Wow. My next one is Grace Under Pressure. So
There you go.
this was the first Rush album that I ever bought as
Wow.
a kid. So this was sort of the time that I first got into Rush. So I remember I wanted to see them on Maple Leaf Gardens, and I didn't know anybody else who liked Rush. And yeah, again, I mean, you both have said such great things about this album. So just a lot of great tunes. Yeah, there's anything else that I can really say that you both haven't said already. So
Yeah, it's great, man. It's absolutely
Mm-hmm.
great. All right, what do we got for you, Pete?
I'm going to go with the debut for my number. What is it? We at 7, 8, whatever number this is.
That's number 8. Yeah.
I mean, this is where it all began. Obviously, I know some folks prefer their more progressive stuff, and I totally get that because I probably do as well. However, this is like one of the unheralded heavy albums of this time period. I mean, and this album has, I think, falsely been accused of being like a Led Zeppelin knockoff. I never got that. This doesn't sound like Zeppelin at all to me. No. I mean, this to me more sounds like a more metallic, maybe Mountain or something like that. But it's just, man, it's heavy. This is like Alex Lifeson playing the biggest riffs of his life. And, you got Geddy just wailing away. Obviously the songs are a little more bluesy and kind of basic song structures and lyrics. And I get that because Neil's not in the band yet. But, man, Finding My Way, What You're Doing, Working Man, Here Again, Need Some Love. I mean, it's just a crushing album that still comes across so heavy today. And I dig it. It's a top 10 Rush for me, easily.
Yeah, it's a great record. In the comparisons, it was Alex, like, the Zeppelin thing, and Alex's sounds like Jimmy Page, and Geddy sounds like Robert Plant. I'm like, on what planet these guys sound like? No, I never saw that. I to my ears, I didn't hear it. I didn't hear it.
Yeah.
So my number 8, and now it's starting to get. Already it's getting hard. I mean, it started hard, but now it's getting hard. I picked Farewell to Kings for my number 8. The title track, Xanadu, which, I mean, I talked about this last week when I saw them on their farewell tour. And when Alex came out with the double neck white SG, like, I was with my brother who's a big Rush fan. I mean, he had 2 grown men crying, because he's playing Xanadu on a double neck. Like, that song just blows me away. Closer to the Heart, of course. I love Cinderella Man. Just a great record, a great, I mean, even Cygnus X1, I mean, like, that whole dirgy thing oh God, it's just those crazy grooves that they would get into sometimes. It's just, a great record, very, epitomizes sort of that record. I think epitomizes Rush in that 70s period, the kimonos and, and everything else. I love Farewell to Kings. I think it's a great record, man. Cover to cover. Yeah. So that's my number 8.
Cool.
All right. We're at 7. Mike.
All right. So I'm going to pull this one out of a rabbit hat. Anybody want to take a guess?
Oh, God. Presto.
Presto.
Wow.
Really? Come on. Come on.
No comment.
Again, it takes me back to when I was in high school, and I remember on that tour. That's actually the first time I met Alex.
Oh wow.
So, yeah, so it was at Maple Leaf Gardens, and if you remember Maple Leaf Gardens, it was easy to find out where the bands came in and out of, even though they were in their cars and stuff. But
Right.
after the show, we just waited at the back of Maple Leaf Gardens,
Uh-huh.
and we were hoping we'd see Olive Rush. I saw Geddy Lee's brother. I didn't know it was his brother. Somebody told me it was his brother. And then, Alex came out with his wife, and he signed my tour book. It was very quick because I remember he said his wife wasn't feeling too good. So, but so I don't know, man. Like, I love that record. Like, Show Don't Tell, The Pass. I mean, I'm blind as a bat, so I can't read off how I feel about every single song. But I don't know. I like the tour. I like the album, and yeah.
What was the live DVD? Was it that they put out at that point?
Show
Was
of
it the
hands.
Show of Hands? Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I
No,
have
that was
DVD.
from Hold Your Fire tour.
Oh, it was
It
Hold
was
Your
right,
Fire.
right before, but the same era though. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I've got the 3 DVDs that they came out with of that period. I've got them, and yeah, cool, man, cool.
I think I'm going to continue to shock you as we go along.
Yeah, well, you do pretty good so far, so
All right.
keep it up. All right, what do you got for 7, Pete?
It's funny because back to the whole Presto thing, and no, Presto's not gonna be my next choice, but when that album came out, at that point I was kind of disappointed in Rush for a number of years. Like, I really didn't like Hold Your Fire and Power Windows, and I was iffy on Grace Under Pressure at the time because I was listening to a lot of thrash and much, much heavier stuff. And I remember, like, they released the single Show Don't Tell, which is a pretty kick-ass song. I was like, oh, cool, Rush is back to playing heavier music. I went out and bought the album, and I'm like, and the rest of this is not very good. And I was like, I've tried so hard to like that album over the years, and I think it's one of the only ones that I just don't find a lot of enjoyment in. I've tried.
Yeah,
but I know a lot of people who love it. I know a lot of people who love it. So
that's the beauty of Rush. There's albums that you could absolutely love, and there's albums that you could absolutely maybe not love. But like I said, I love them all. There are certain favorites that I have that are obviously really obscure and crazy.
And Lewis, yes, Power Windows is very good. I have learned to love Power Windows. So yeah. Anyway, my number 7 is going to be Fly By Night, which has one of the greatest album openers of all time, and Anthem. Yeah. Man, get any better than Anthem? I mean, it's like, whew, killer. By-Tor and the Snow Dog. Title track, In the End. I mean, Best I Can, Beneath, Between, and Behind. And plus, how do you not love that owl on the album cover, right?
Yeah.
I've got a hoodie with that owl on it, man. I just love it so much. So, yeah.
Well, that was a transition record, right? They still had some leftover stuff from the first record, and then they started...
Yeah, like half of it's kind of that kind of really brutally heavy bluesy rock first, and the other half is like that kind of sci-fi proggy epic length stuff, kind of like that. And you kind of saw where they were going.
Yeah,
they really went further on the next album, obviously.
Well, the next album, you could say they went overboard on the next one, but
yep.
All right, so for my number 7. I got Fly By Night too. That's my number 7. Yeah, it's a great record, man. What did I write down here? Title track, Anthem, By-Tor, In the End. All great songs. And yeah, you can see where Neil is starting to put his fingerprint on the band at that point, because you can definitely hear the transition. There's songs on there that could have very well have been on the first record, and then the rest of it, that sort of, long distance, future looking in the looking glass of what Rush was going to be. So, yeah, great record, man. Great record, Fly By Night, totally. All right, back to Mike for your number 6.
Okay, you ready for this one?
I don't know.
I'm afraid.
All right, Snakes and Arrows.
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
Oh, hey, we all agree.
Yes.
I mean, you can't go wrong. Two instrumentals on this album. Yeah, I just love it. It's hard for me to go in depth because I don't have any notes, but yeah, I love it. It's
Well,
a
that
great
tour-
album.
that
Obviously,
tour-
you guys think so too. So let's move on.
Well, that tour too, right? They came out and they did that medley at the beginning, which is amazing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And they released the live CD and DVD for that tour as well, right?
Right. And that's why I know, because I have it, and I love
Yeah.
the way I love the way that show starts out. You know.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's great, man. It's great.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
glad you guys approve of this one.
I approve of it. All right. What do we got for number 6, Pete?
I'm going to make a switch right now on
Oh,
the fly.
man.
So I am now going to deviate from what I was going to pick as my number 6 is going to be my number 5. And this is where we're going to differ from what I did back in January on my own show. So my number 6 is going to be 2112.
Okay.
All right. I'll get to the reasons why the other one has now moved into the number 5 position. I love this album. I really do. I think the title track is a gargantuan piece of epic storytelling, sci-fi storytelling. It's very progressive. It's heavy as all hell. Passage to Bangkok is awesome. Something for Nothing is great. Something for Nothing actually could have been a leftover from the first 2 albums, I think. Right. I dig it a lot. I think the one that just surpassed it, I have liked a lot more in recent times. So that's why I made the switch. But this is classic Rush. What's not to love about this, right?
Yeah. I mean, you can't argue 2112. That fortunately for us revived their career and gave them a career.
Yeah.
That's a steal. So nothing you can say bad about that. So my number 6 is the first record. The first Rush record. So, and again, we talked about it. Great straight ahead rock, Working Man, Finding My Way. And it's funny because Finding My Way already has kind of like a little bit of a prog intro to it, if you think about it. Has a little bit of a prog. There was a little sort of sprinkles of prog in that record. What You're Doing is great, Before and After, just a great straight ahead rock record. Like I was saying earlier, the early comparisons with Zeppelin, for me anyway, I didn't see any of that. Geddy sounds nothing like Robert Plant. I just think it's a great, like you were saying, Pete, just a great straight ahead rock record. Really typical of hard rock in the 70s. But at that time you had Aerosmith and your Ted Nugents and your Kiss and all that, and that was sort of just fit the bill at that point. And
yeah, I mean, you look at all the heavy stuff that came before it, like Zeppelin and Sabbath and Deep Purple and Uriah Heep, and it doesn't sound like any of that, right?
No,
not at all. It doesn't sound like their contemporaries were Aerosmith. It doesn't sound like Aerosmith. For me, the only thing I get is a little bit of like I said, that early heavy Mountain. Maybe if you've ever listened to the New York band Sir Lord Baltimore, a little bit of that, maybe, but not. It's a very original band. Yeah, it's kind of bluesy and it's you got the high pitched vocals, but I always thought Rush were very much unique from the get go.
Yeah, and great. I mean, the only thing, if I was to criticize that record, some of the lyrics are pretty cheesy, but
they are, yeah,
lyrics, right?
Yeah. Well, we've been spoiled, right, from Fly By Night and on. So
well, there's that, and the story goes, John Rutsey was supposed to write the lyrics, and then he's like, yeah, and then there's Geddy like scribbling madly to write lyrics before he goes and sings the vocals on these. So,
Ooh, I Need Some Love, right? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. But the playing is great. The songs are great. I mean, you can't argue that. You can't argue that.
Yep.
You want to talk about lyrics? I think I'm Going Bald isn't exactly up there either.
That's yeah. Well, that could have, like I said, that's kind of some of those Fly By Night tunes could have been carryovers, right?
Well, that was Caress of Steel, but
yeah. Or was Caress of Steel? Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
just you were talking about lyrics, so I was just saying.
Yeah, I think I'm Going Bald.
Yeah.
The rumor is they wrote that about Kim Mitchell because they were touring with Kim Mitchell. at that, or Max Webster at that point.
Oh, really?
That was the rumor. So they were writing it about him. But
And Kim was losing his hair very early on.
yeah, well, Kim always wore the hat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Kim had that kind of skullet thing going on, right?
Yeah.
Like Devin Townsend did also as well later on. But yeah.
Yeah. All right. Where are we at? Was that number 6 or number 5?
That was 6. Yeah, that was 6.
That was 6. Okay.
All right.
You're number 5 now. Okay, right. Okay.
So
Go ahead, Mike.
it's my turn, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Just making sure. So my number 5 is Permanent Waves.
Oh yeah.
Pete? I don't hear anything.
I'm a big fan. I listened to that 2 hours ago, actually.
Yeah.
There you go.
Love this album from start to finish. The funny thing is, I have all the Rush albums on vinyl, CD, and cassette. And when this album came out in Canada, there was a Canadian version, and it was came with a poster, and it was also on red vinyl. And I have that in my collection too. And I'm really happy that I have that because it was hard to find at the time.
So what are some of your highlights of that record?
Oh, the whole thing. I mean, I can't see
The whole damn thing.
Yeah, really, from start to finish. I mean, Spirit of Radio.
Spirit of Radio is one of those songs that, I mean, it played it a lot, but I've never gotten tired of hearing it.
No, we've jammed that too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, when I can keep up at that intro for a minute. My fingers don't fall apart. Yeah, we have jammed that. That's right. Yeah, it's a great one.
Mm-hmm.
Great. All right, what do we got for number 5, Pete?
All right, a shout out to Mr. Captain Beyond who called it. Caress of Steel is my number 5. Was my number 6. I decided to make the switch because, quite frankly, I listen to this more these days than I do 2112, and I think this is the most underrated album in their entire discography. Man, the Fountain of Lamneth and the Necromancer. I mean, come on, heavy, epic, progressive metal like we had never heard before when this came out. And I know when this album came out, the fans were like almost scared of it because it was so like out there and heavy. The critics hated it. The record label hated it. They're like, you have to do something different. Otherwise, your future on the label is, might not be too secure. Of course, they went out and went even further with 2112, and that turned out to be a big hit, right? But man, Bastille Day, Lakeside Park is great. Yeah, I think I'm Going Bald is probably the one kind of weakest track on here, but the rest of it just absolutely crushes. And I love this really kind of dramatic, courageous, I might almost say, epic songwriting on this album with like those 2 tracks, killer. I love the album cover, love everything about it. Another one of those albums that I am loving more and more as the years go on. There you have it.
Yeah, I always liked Lakeside Park. I always love that song.
Yeah.
It's a great tune. My number 5, and Mike had it earlier, is Snakes and Arrows. Now, there's an album that it's got, Far Cry, Working the Angels is one of my favorite Rush tunes. I love that. Main Monkey Business, Bravest Face. I mean, that's one of those records that, I kind of when I came back to Rush and I was saying that, getting all the, the R40 with all the Blu-rays and DVDs, and I'm hearing all these great songs. I'm like, oh man, that's all off of Snakes and Arrows. Like, they had so many good songs on that record. Mm-hmm. It was just packed full of good songs. I don't know if it got as much notoriety as some of the other records. I think that's almost like a hidden gem, but there's just so many good songs on that record. And for that reason only, I mean, because that's not one that comes, when you think top 10 Rush, it's not one that pops in your head immediately. But when you really look at it and go, holy shit, there's a lot of really good songs on that. And that, that for me, it's a great album, man. Snakes and Arrows is awesome.
I think at the time there were some people that were a little disappointed with Test for Echo and Vapor Trails, and they were all over that album because I think that album had it's fairly proggy. I know I use that term a lot, but and it's got really memorable songs, and there's a lot of good guitar on it as well.
Yeah.
It was pretty well received by the fans when that came out.
Yeah, it's a great record, and that if you get a copy of that, I would highly recommend. The R40. I don't know if you can you still get that, Mike? The R40, the book with all the
Yeah,
in
you
it?
can still, you could probably find it on eBay or Amazon or something like that.
Yeah, that's phenomenal, and the Snakes and Arrows tour is in that, and that's one of their best, one of their best shows to watch, and it's a long. All their shows are like 3 hour long. I mean, it's all the Rush you'll ever want. It's great, and the musicianship. I mean, I have to go on to just Rush, man. They're amazing.
Yeah.
So that's my number 5. All right, so now we're getting down to brass tacks. Okay, what do we got for number 4, Mike?
All right, drum
Right.
roll. We got Signals.
Signals. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
So again, I guess you could tell now that my favorite era of Rush is like the heavy keyboards 80s era. So yeah, I mean, again, I think somebody had this on their list already. Pete, didn't you have that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So again, there's not much more I can say about it, but great album all the way through. Another record recorded at Le Studio, as we talked about before.
Yes.
And
So let's talk about that now. So Mike was saying off air that you actually visited Le Studio. So tell us about that, Mike.
I visited Le Studio.
All right.
No, so a buddy of mine is really interested in going to abandoned places and doing some photography. And once in a while, he would take me with him. So we went on a trip, and he asked if I'd want to go to Le Studio. And this is 5 years ago. And I said, man, would I love to go? Yeah, absolutely. So he's like, well, as long as we can get in, because it depends when you go, and there's a lot of security there because it's abandoned, obviously, right?
Right.
And so we went to Quebec, and man, it was amazing because it was still intact. For anybody who follows the Le Studio page, it was completely vandalized. People smashed the windows, set fires in there. When I went, it was still pretty much intact. So what I did was I actually made a video, and if anybody's curious to see it, it's called Rush, A Walk Inside Le Studio, and it's on YouTube. And basically, I was right there in the studio where they recorded all these great albums. I mean, other great bands have recorded there as well as Rush, but it was just so cool to be in the room where they did the video for Tom Sawyer and Limelight. And I was just, man, it was incredible. Just being there and just thinking of the history that went on there. And it was really sad to hear when it was vandalized, because it's just a bunch of kids that were going there, smoking up, doing whatever they were doing in there. And just like, I saw a video probably not longer than, it was less than a year from the time I was there. And it was completely, it just, you wouldn't even recognize it. Like, there was a balcony that looked out onto the lake. And that lake, for anybody who remembers when Neil Peart was endorsed by Tama, there was a big poster that he did where his drums were set up in the middle of a lake. And it was actually right behind the studio there. But anyway, that balcony just got totally, like, it was just broken. Like, it was horrible. But again, the video that I put together, it was still in really good condition. So what I do is I go into all the different rooms and studios, and it was magical being there. And there were a few other people who actually came in when we were still there, and a couple of French guys. And I remember they were like, "Are there any Rush fans here?" Like they were like, it seemed like anybody who was going to check it out was a diehard Rush fan. So,
right.
And at one point they were actually trying to revive it, but I mean, it even in the state that it was when I went. I mean, it had been abandoned for years, so it would have taken a lot of money.
Yeah.
And,
Well, it's pretty I mean, it isn't a pretty remote area too, isn't it? To get.
yeah. Well, that's the thing, because they would live there. So the one thing that I didn't film was the downstairs, because the upstairs was where all the studios were and everything. There's a pool table there. But in the basement, that's where the bands would live. So they would go and they would live there at that time for, I mean, bands took how many months to record a record back then? Now it's everybody does it from home, right? So almost everybody does. There are still a lot of bands that will go to like Metalworks or whatever, but they have a lot more money. So, but yeah, so anyone who wants to check that out, it's Rush, A Walk Inside the Studio. And
yeah, I'll see if I can grab it from your channel and maybe put it in the description as a link later on.
Yeah, that would be cool. And also on my channel too. Like I don't have an active channel or anything, but when my vision was better, I would film bands. So there's all kinds of bands that I filmed from all different concerts I've gone to, and there's Rush on there. There's Van Halen. Yeah, so it's if you
cool.
Check it out.
Yeah, I'll put a link for your channel.
Okay.
For sure. Sounds good, man. All right, what do we got, Pete?
Crazy story. Number 5, huh? All right. And to all my viewers who are watching here, no bloopers tonight so far. Little inside joke there. I'm going to go with Permanent Waves.
Nice.
Was just listening to this today, and man, I love this album. I just wish it was longer, right? It's a great one, and even the tunes that got played to death here on the radio and still get played all the time, Spirit of Radio and Free Will, they still sound fresh today. But for me, when I listen to this album, I want to listen to Jacob's Ladder. I want to listen to Natural Science, and you got different strings and just great stuff. And even though this album is where they started to maybe commercialize their sound a little bit, I think it still has all of the Rush elements. It's heavy, it's progressive, it's melodic, awesome, great guitar solos on it. The bass playing is off the charts. The drumming is great. Geddy still sounds, awesome as always. It's got, all these cool album, the cool album cover, and yeah, it's just classic Rush.
I love Natural Science. It's so awesome whenever they played that live.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Good picks. Okay, so for my number 4, I got Signals. Signals was the first show that I saw Rush at Maple Leaf Gardens. And, that record, and when that came out and the Subdivisions thing and all that stuff, like I was that kid in the high school that was in that video. That was me. Like I identified with that 120%, man. Like that was the whole, because that was my age, that, the grade 9, grade 10 high school kid, whatever. I mean, that really hit home, and the rest of the record too. I mean, my memory is shit here. New World Man, Analog Kid, The Weapon, just really good songs, and like lyrically, Neil just he was hitting us us nerds, in a very timely fashion. In my case, I mean, just great lyrics, great songs, great everything. I mean, yeah, the keyboards were coming in there, but I mean, you still had some nice Lifeson riffage on that record for sure, man. 100%.
You know what's interesting about that album? It's like they released New World Man as the single, and for me, it's like the worst song on the album. It's not bad, but I just think they could have picked any other number of songs.
Yeah, you know what? Now that you mention it, it is odd that they started out with New World Man. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that was the single.
Because I remember when they released that single before the album came out. I remember hearing that. I was like, "Ugh, I'm not real." What happened here? After Moving Pictures, I was like, and then you hear the rest of the album, you're like, oh, this is actually pretty good.
Yeah,
I never thought it was a good choice for a single. I mean, I definitely think that like Chemistry is like got hooks to die for, right?
Yeah.
Digital Man, it's like Analog Kid, and Subdivisions is a monster track.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, I mean, history kind of proves you right? Because you don't really hear. I mean, everybody knows, and Subdivisions became a staple in their live show.
Yeah.
Did they ever play New World Man?
I think so.
They might have played it on the tour. I don't know.
That tour?
No, yeah.
It didn't become a staple. Was my point. Like, I don't think it was.
They didn't play that on R40.
No, that's the whole thing. And all the, like I was saying, all those concerts, all those Blu-rays. There's no sign of New World Man. Subdivision is there. So yeah, that's a good point. All right. So what are we at now? Number
3.
We're at 3. Okay. So speaking of moving pictures is my number 3. What can you say about Moving Pictures, man?
It's fantastic.
What can you say about Moving Pictures? I mean,
all the way through,
cover to cover, right?
Cover to cover.
I mean, even the lesser known cuts, like what I write down, like Camera Eye.
Yeah.
I love Camera Eye. I mean, the way it builds and, all the textures and everything else, YYZ. I mean, Limelight, Red Bar Shadow. I mean, no. Yeah. Is Limelight on that? No.
Moving Pictures? Yeah.
Moving Pictures, yeah.
Okay. See, I'm so bad in my memory. That's why I got to write shit down. But, yeah, absolutely phenomenal record, man. Absolutely phenomenal.
So is that your number 3 or number 4?
Okay, you know what? I skipped one. Number 4 is Signals.
Okay.
I just gave away my number 3. Yeah, because you were talking about Signals, and
I screwed up because I went on this whole tangent. I know. Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's like you're talking, and then I thought maybe I was talking about Signals because I was talking about Signals because that was my number 4. I just gave away my number 3. Okay, let's. What's your number 3, Mike?
I think I may have screwed that up because I think when you said what are we at, I forgot that you hadn't gone yet, and I'm like, oh no, I've got 3 left. So.
All right. Well, what's your number?
Sorry about that, buddy. I stole your thunder.
No worries, man. No worries.
Okay. So something that's
Presto again?
What?
Is it Presto again? I'm kidding. What's your number 3?
This will probably make you cringe, but I've got good reason for it. Hold Your Fire.
Hold Your Fire.
Yeah. Now, I still to this day love this album. Again, it's one of those albums that all the way through I like, except, maybe not Taishan, but this was the first time I saw Rush was on this tour. And that's what really hooked me to Rush. I mean, I kind of got into Rush around, I'd say I really started listening to them a lot around the Power Windows time. Mm-hmm. And I remember a buddy of mine, he wanted to go see Rush. And he's like, you want to go? And I was like, yeah, I'll go check it out. And that just changed my life. That show was incredible. That's obviously what they released from the tours was a show of hands. Mm-hmm. And I remember actually seeing Neil Peart doing that drum solo. It's still one of my favorite drum solos today from that album. I don't know. That's what really made me want to play drums was after seeing this tour. So, and I remember the video for Time Stands Still. Remember the cheesy video where they're all floating?
Yeah, they're floating. Yeah.
But at the time, it was so cool. It was like, it was awesome. So, I don't know. I just have a lot of good memories with that record. It's very, very melodic. It's a really big, again, I use timestamp a lot, but it's a huge timestamp for me. So, I still love that record today.
So being a drummer, how do you feel about when Neil switched over? And it was around that period that he started playing a lot with the electronic drums. How do you feel about that?
I liked it because I was always into the whole, when they got into the keyboards and the electronics. And I think if I remember correctly, that was probably the first tour that he really incorporated the electronics into his drum solo. So, I never had a problem with it. So,
you don't mind the electronic crash, like the rubber crashes and all that? You're good with that?
Oh yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I was just a kid back then too, right? But it was just I just remember being in awe, like watching this guy. And the funny thing is, when I went back, because once I started getting into Rush, that's when I started going back and discovering some of the older albums, and I didn't realize that that was Neil Peart. I was like, well, in the old Rush, I'm like, who's that guy with the mustache and the long hair? Like, I didn't realize it was him. So it's kind of funny thinking back now, I was like, what, like, but I don't know, man. It was all good.
So,
So that's
yeah, sorry, go ahead, Mike.
no. That's my number 3.
All right, I was just there's a comment. Bruce is saying, "Wait, didn't New World Men make it onto Chronicles Disc 2, I believe?"
I think, yeah,
I don't know. I don't know. I
disc
was,
1,
I was,
I think.
yeah, I was referring to like what they're live, playing it live. So,
Yeah.
all right, where we're at number 3. What do you got for number 3?
All right, I got to go with Farewell to Kings.
Wow, good record, man.
My beloved Farewell to Kings. Love the title track. Love the kind of robes they played live with the double mix. I mean, this whole period is like, for me, like, it's just so epic.
Yes.
And it has what could be my favorite Rush song of all time in Xanadu on it, right?
Yeah.
Cinderella Man, Cygnus X1, of course, Madrigal. I mean, the whole album is very magical. It's just got this big sound. It's there. I think they grew into their own skin with this album. All the experimenting they did the albums before. I think it's this album where they finally realized all their potential, and it's just a beautiful record. And I love the album cover, and just the production is fantastic, and the songwriting is just going through the roof at this point. So someday there have been some years I've ranked this higher, but I think 3 is my top 3 are like. My top 4 actually. Well, my top 5 actually. Well, they're all great, right? All the top 10 is just top shelf Rush.
Yeah, I like I was saying earlier, man. Farewell to Kings. That's like that encapsulates that period perfectly. The songs and the writing style, and they get long, but they're still not crazy long. Like Xanadu and such. But yeah, I love that. I love that era of Rush. And what's cool is a lot of that stuff is on YouTube. Like the videos you can watch old videos of them playing Xanadu, and they got the robes on and everything. And for me, visually, that's my favorite period of Rush. Give me the kimonos. I want the kimono.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I already gave away my number 3, and that was Moving Pictures. So yeah. And again, I mean, what can you say about Moving Pictures, man? Tom Sawyer, like those. That's another song, Tom Sawyer. I mean, as much as I play it, I never get tired of hearing that song. That's just one of those songs that just anything off of Moving Pictures doesn't get tired. I don't know. Just it's great. It's all
I
good
don't think
stuff.
we've actually jammed that one. We've done Limelight. I don't think.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I don't know. I know the riff to Lime. I know like 3/4 of Limelight. I don't know.
No, I'm talking about Tom Sawyer.
No, I don't know how to play
Tom Sawyer. I'm saying we. Oh, okay. I was going to say, because if you did forget about the COVID, we're gonna jam tomorrow.
I just gotta find us a keyboard player. All right. So since I did my 3 already, let's just move on. What do you got for number 2, Mike?
For number 2, I have Moving Pictures.
Oh, there you go.
What can you say about this album? Well, it rocks all the way through. Tom Sawyer was the first Rush song that I ever learned how to play on the drums. So,
wow.
Again, I mean, we've all kind of covered this album. There's not much more that I could say about it, but just still fantastic album. Still listen to it regularly. I have a Rush playlist when I do my workouts, and that's a big part of it. And it was great. Did you go to the Time Machine tour?
I did not.
That was a great tour. So that's when they played the album from front to back.
Yeah,
and
I have the Blu-ray.
Yeah, it was so good.
Good. Yeah. And that I still remember when that record came out, and they went to Q107 and they played every cut. and Getty and Alex from the studio talking about every song.
Yeah, like I said, I think I have that on cassette
You
somewhere.
probably have it on CD somewhere.
I got to digitize it and put it onto CD because I'm old school that way. I still like a physical copy, right?
Yeah. So PQ107 is like our local rock radio station here, and it was way bigger. Now I don't know what the hell it is now, but back then it was like the main. And they would actually, the Rush guys would come in and they would debut their records on that radio station.
Yeah.
And they would pick up the cut and talk about it. It was amazing, man. It's like, they're local heroes, man. All right. Sure. What do we got for number 2, Pete?
How about a little Hemispheres?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Could be number 1, but my number 1's got to be number 1 because that's the album that like really made me a Rush fan. But, this has got the second part of Cygnus. Classic, great way to kick off an album, right? Circumstances, the trees, and one of my favorite instrumental rock tracks of all time, La Villa Strangiato, though I like it better on the Exit Stage Left album. I think it's amazing on that live album.
Yeah.
It's great on here too. Again, this is just epic Rush. I mean, how can you not like this stuff? And I remember like being a kid and just, I'm not much of a lyric guy. I never have been, but this album and this album, these are the albums that you like. You kind of you start reading the lyrics and you're like, wow, where'd they come up with this stuff, right? And that's what Neil Peart brought to this band. I mean, just some really, really out there, kind of thought-provoking lyrics, right? And not a lot of bands were doing stuff like that. That's what made these guys so cool.
Yeah. I mentioned so Mike, I don't know if you experienced this, but I mentioned this to the guys on the Rush show last week. When I was like in grade 9. When we get an English assignment, guys would hand in like like Rush lyrics to the teacher, like it was my assignment.
They're not gonna know, right? Yeah.
It's like, holy shit, this guy's talented.
Oh my god, that's hilarious.
But he's got great lyrics, Anyway, now that was pretty funny. So my number 2, and it's been mentioned already, is 2112. 2112. I mean, what can you say about 2112? I mean, that whole side is just unbelievable. I mean, talk about riffs. I mean, there's riffs for days in that, on that side, and all the different musical passages and everything else, and when they play 2112 live, even if they just do like little bits and pieces, which is what they do now, they kind of do a medley. It's just, I mean, that stuff's just, it's unbelievable, man. 2112 is. There's no words how great that record is. I absolutely love 21. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. It's 2112, man. That's the record that put Rush.
You scared me.
What?
You scared me because when I showed mine, you were like, "Wow!" I thought you were saying like it shouldn't have been in the top 10. So I'm glad.
No,
you have it there.
I was pleased that it was in the top 10.
Okay. Yeah, well, now I understand. I'm happy. See, we do see eye to eye on a lot of things.
Yeah, we see eye to eye on 2112. Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my number 2. All right, now comes the big one. Here come the number 1s.
All right.
What do you got, Mike? Number 1.
My number 1 is Feedback, the Rush cover. No, I'm just kidding. No. Okay, here's another one that'll make you freak out, but Power Windows.
Wow.
This is the tour that I wanted to see. Hang on a second. This is the tour that I wanted to see. But at the time, I didn't have any Rush friends. And I remember them playing Maple Leaf Gardens, and I wanted to go so badly. I love this album, again, all the way through. Big Money, Marathon, Grand Designs, like the songs are very melodic, and it's got that big keyboard sound that, I mean, that's the era that I really love. So, as shocked as you are, I will stand up and say that this is my all-time favorite Rush album.
That's like your Crazy Nights for Kiss.
Yeah, well, hey man, it's like.
That's cool, man.
This is the thing. I mean, we got to let everybody know that I am 20 years younger than you. Okay, that's not true. No. Hey,
Oh
variety is the spice of life, right?
no, it's all good, man. It's all good. It's
Yeah,
all power windows. Wow.
that's it.
You know
I'm
what?
sticking
Like,
to it.
and you said you were going to surprise me. Mission accomplished.
I didn't disappoint. Hey, that's why I like doing these things. It's great,
Yeah.
you know.
All right. Okay.
Variety is good.
Yeah,
Variety.
variety is good, man. All right. Number one, Pete. What do you got?
All right. So before I divulge my number one, which probably won't be a big mystery, I do want to clarify something I said a little bit before, and a lot of people in the chat are kind of asking about it. So when I say that I've never been much of a lyric guy, what that means is I'm not the guy who would go and buy an album or a CD and sit down and listen to every song, go through the lyrics and go along with the song by the lyrics and try to figure out what they're talking about in the song. I've never been that kind of person. It's like, you know what? I like the lyrics. I don't spend a lot of time trying to decipher the lyrics or why they wrote the song. For me, it's always more about the music, the choruses, and that sort of thing. So it's not like I don't listen to vocals and lyrics and things like that, but I don't obsess about it. There are a lot of people that, like, when they buy a new record, they sit and they try to figure out, all right, what was the writer trying to convey in this song? I've never been that type of person ever at all. So that's kind of, so for everybody asking, that's kind of what I mean by that.
Yeah.
So, but with Rush and like Kansas and maybe a couple of other bands here or there, I'm kind of interested in where they're coming from. But for the most part, I don't give it much time of day.
Yeah, I'm not a lyric guy. I'm like you. I mean, I don't. Lyrics are secondary. It's all about the music. And then after you sort of digest that bit, oh well, he was it sounded like he was saying something interesting there, and then I'll refer to the lyrics. But before that, it's always music first.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So my favorite is Moving Pictures. And again, the reason why this has kind of perpetually been my favorite Rush album for all these years is that I started to get into Rush right before this album came out. So the first album I ever heard by them was the live album All the World's a Stage. I love that. Right. Then I heard Hemispheres and A Farewell to Kings, and then I heard Permanent Waves, and I was digging all that stuff, and I liked them a lot. But then this came out, and this was, like huge here in North America, obviously, all over the radio. And I fell in love with this album big time. And that made me appreciate everything they had done before even more. So I became like a huge Rush fan. I was already a fan, but I became a huge Rush fan with this album. And this is like really a perfect album. There's nothing bad on here at all. And maybe unlike you guys, I don't really need to hear Tom Sawyer much anymore. It's a great song. I get it. I'm kind of a little tired of it, but like Red Barchetta, freaking great. Still great. YYZ is amazing. I love Limelight. See, I'm not tired of Limelight. Every time I hear Limelight, I'm like, oh, great. And I love the guitar solo, and his guitar solos on this album are fantastic. The Camera Eye is an awesome, like long progressive rock epic, nice and melodic. Witch Hunt is another one of my favorite Rush tunes. Yeah. It's so dark, it's so heavy. And I will tell you something. The one song that I didn't like much back then on this album, and now I love, is Vital Signs. What a cool, quirky, different song.
Yeah.
And it's one of those tunes, it's probably for me now the sleeper cut on this album that I love now that I didn't really dig much back then. Really cool song. That's when they started you can really tell with Vital Signs that they're probably going to go in some different directions after this album, and they did. Right. So, but great album, great production, great songs. They're all memorable. It's just, as much as I want to say that, these albums are probably a little more challenging to listen to. I just always come back to this one, and this one will always be just a little bit above the other ones. Just a little bit. Just a little.
Yeah. All right. My number one, and this has got timestamp written all over it. It's the first Rush record I ever bought, but you know what? Even years later, it's still the one that I love the most, and it's Hemispheres. Absolutely love Hemispheres, man. Side one is, and I've always liked it more than 2112 because I know those two records are kind of like neck and neck in terms of like that one side of one song, but I always preferred the Hemispheres, side one, all of it, Circumstances is one of my favorite tunes. La Villa Strangiata that you mentioned. Is it my favorite? I think that's my favorite instrumental as well. Just it's it's for me, and this is going to piss off a lot of people. It's like a better version of 2112. That's what that record is for me. You know, if you look,
I agree with you 100%.
You know, if you look at like the one side being one song, and then songs on the side. I mean, it's just a step above 2112. I just love it. I love that record, man.
It's almost like 2112 is kind of the testing or beta ground for what would come next, and that was Hemispheres.
Yeah, Hemispheres is awesome. It's awesome. All right. If anyone in the chat, I should have mentioned this earlier, has got comments or questions, the trees. Yeah, there you go. Alexander Rocker says, what was interesting about this top 10 is seeing how the difference in age, yes, and exposure to Rush affects how Mike sees these albums versus how Pete and Guitar Hack feel about them. You got to admire that. Yeah. And I was saying that earlier, and it really doesn't matter. Any band. It's like when you came into that band, the time you came in, you're always going to have a soft spot for those records. And then everything else is really secondary. And Pete and I think we're about the same age, and Mike is 20 years younger than or so he says.
Can we talk about... Sorry.
Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
I was going to say, can we talk about Neil for a little bit?
Oh, sure, man.
So, I mean, Neil's influence on me made me the drummer that I am today. He was my all-time favorite drummer ever. If I could have paid any amount of money to have even a 1-hour drum lesson with anybody in the world, it was always him. And it just January 7th of this year kind of set the tone for everything that's been going on this year.
Yeah.
Like I was absolutely in shock when I heard that he passed away. I was like heartbroken. I mean, it was just, it's so sad. Right. And I found out recently, well, there was actually, you guys know the magazine Modern Drummer, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was a Neil Peart tribute done by Modern Drummer, and it had all these different drummers from like, God name you name it, they were on that video. Steve Smith from Journey, Mike Portnoy from Dream Theater. It was a really great tribute. My friend actually saw the whole thing, and the one thing that he told me was Neil actually got diagnosed with his cancer almost a year from the day that the R40 tour ended. So Neil's plan was to retire, spend time with his daughter, enjoy life. And it's so sad that it had to go that way. So,
so he knew about it the whole farewell tour.
No, he didn't. He got diagnosed a year after.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So apparently that was revealed in that Modern Drummer tribute. But for me, I mean, they was just like a stab to the heart losing him. And then our year went into the whole COVID thing, and then just losing Eddie Van Halen last week, another one of my heroes, even though I'm not a guitar player, but that hit me hard because it was like, Rush, Kiss, Van Halen. That's the stuff that I grew up with, right? Yeah. So it just, man, like it just sucks.
I would say that Neil for drummers is a lot like Eddie Van Halen for guitar players.
Yeah.
Influence wise,
I mean, it was even for me, not being a guitar player, losing Eddie was just like, it's terrible. Like there aren't too many of these guys left.
No.
Right. So
this year sucked. I mean, you got Neil and Eddie and Peter Green, formerly from Fleetwood Mac, and Frankie Banali and Lee Kerslake and Uriah Heep. It's just like one after another. This year is just
Frankie Banali was another one because I remember listening to Quiet Riot again as a kid. I remember seeing them on TV at remember the Yes Festival?
Yes Festival, yeah.
1983.
Yeah.
Man, that's when I first got introduced to Quiet Riot. And just this year's been horrible.
Yeah, you know what? It's a reality of our age. I mean, you know, like I'm gonna be 54 in a couple weeks, and it's like, okay, so all my heroes makes them automatically 74 and 75, and they're all gonna be roughly 20 years older. So, you know, that's the future, man. It's just like,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, that being said, you know, Neil went before his time, and certainly
Oh yeah.
Eddie went before his time. I mean, it's
Yeah.
cancer, you know. So, but yeah, that's just a reality, man. That you know that we have in our future, really.
And you know what? I mean, there aren't heroes like we had today, or they're
Musically,
very
no.
far and few between. I mean, I mean, who's the last great guitar player to come out that everybody really talks about?
On an Eddie level,
Hmm. Or just like, yeah, like a guitar hero, or even a drum hero.
Like since 1990 specifically.
yeah, because you could, you know, like I mean, you know, when you say guitar heroes, you know, first name that pops into my head is like Nuno Betancourt, right? You got guys like that, you know, your Zach Wilds,
Mm.
you know, your Steve Vais, your Joe Satriani's, and guys like that. But I mean, these guys, again, you're going back to the 90s, really.
Yeah, you're going back like late '80s, early '90s, right?
Yeah, you know, in the 2000s.
Yeah.
But that also ties into the music industry, right? Like there's nobody putting out, there's no music industry
There
anymore.
is no, yeah, exactly.
You know, so it's kind of like the two. It's not that there aren't great players out there. Sure, there's great, but the notoriety isn't there to go with them,
Yeah,
right? I
yeah.
mean, you got your Guthrie Govans, and who the hell knows who Guthrie Govan is if you're not a guitar player, you know?
Right.
So
The music
Doesn't
industry
doesn't he own a pizza store?
there you go.
Sorry, just kidding.
the music industry isn't producing icons anymore. That's what it comes
Yeah,
down to. And it hasn't for a long time.
yeah. Just that's why I don't listen to the radio anymore.
Yeah.
Actually, there is a radio station that I listen to, and what do they play? 70s, 80s, 90s. All the
Yeah,
most memorable stuff, right? Like what's even you talk about like a movement, like there was the glam movement, the grunge movement. I mean, after grunge, what was there really? Like there hasn't been really
Not
anything
as
in the
far as
last
rock is
decade.
concerned. Yeah, as far as rock is concerned, really
Yeah,
nothing.
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, I don't mean to cut up any musicians or anything, but when I hear that people are listening to, I think her name's Billie Eilish. Have you heard her
Yeah,
music? Like, I'm sorry, man. Like, it sounds like she's half asleep when she's singing. Like when I hear that, I'm like, this is what is huge now. This is what the big deal is. I'm like, really? I don't know. It just frustrates me because
yeah,
there's still so many young, talented musicians out there. And I feel bad for the younger bands trying to get out and do stuff today. It's like, it's
well,
it's terrible.
any younger band that's out there now because of COVID, I mean, they don't have the big record contract and all of that. You know, I mean, they live on touring. I mean, a lot of
Oh
them
yeah,
shrivel up and die now, right?
yeah. Well, that's it. That's why I like all the bands except for like, the huge like Queen and like all the AC/DC because they're going to be coming back out with a new album. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's just it's really frustrating.
yeah. It's definitely a sad state of affairs. Definitely. So I don't know if you're seeing this comment, but then just to change gears here for a minute, CK is asking, can Guitar Hack do a top 10 solos of Lifeson with Pete like you did with Ace the other night? I don't know.
Alex is on my list to do on Sea of Tranquility. So if you'd like to join me, there you have it.
Okay. Talk about what's that word I
Gotta
couldn't
love on the fly program booking, right?
talk about what's that Herculean task?
Yes. Yep.
Oh my lord, that's crazy. That's crazy. All right, well, we're past the hour. hope everybody dug the show and enjoyed it. And in the comments, hey, let me know. Let me know what your top 10 is. And if you've got other suggestions for shows, yeah, pile them in there in the comments. So before we take off here, Mike, you're on this side. Any last minute things you wanted to mention?
Not really. I mean, I just wanted to talk about Neil, which we did, and just say this was really fun. And I'm glad I was able to kind of like, come out with some surprises in my top 10. Like I said, I love all the records, but it was so hard to pick a top 10. But
we didn't do the notable mentions, but for me, Permanent Waves did not make my top 10, and that surprised the bejesus out of me.
Mm-hmm.
The other record that was like, Clockwork Angels.
Oh yeah, that was in and out of mine too.
That is such a good record. I'm like, man,
it really is. But you know what? We were talking about Vapor Trails earlier. I really like that album too.
Yeah.
So
Vapor Trails. Yeah, Clockwork. Any notable mentions for you, Pete?
I just held them up. So Counterparts and Clockwork Angels. I felt really bad. These are probably sitting at 11 and 12 on my list. I love them both. I mean, I dig all the albums. I would say probably the only album that I'm really not a huge fan. Well, there's two of them. Hold Your Fire and Presto. I mean, I can listen to those are my bottom two. I like Test for Echo a lot.
Hang on, let me get a Kleenex. I'm going to start crying. Sorry.
Vapor Trail's a good album too. And I've learned to really appreciate Power Windows. Yeah. But I would say and Snakes and Arrows I like quite a bit too. But I think my next two in line are these two right here. So.
Yeah, those two for me were tough. You got any notable mentions, Mike? Sorry, I'm just doing a quick text here.
Notable mentions. Well, again, yeah, like Clockwork Angels was in and out. I also like Roll the Bones.
Yeah.
So, Counterparts. I kind of regret not throwing that in somewhere. Again, I love that album too. So great tour as well.
All right. Well, folks, if you want to help support the Guitar Hack channel, I've got links below. There's a link to Pete's YouTube channel, Sea of Tranquility. Check that out. I also have links to support the channels I was saying. There's Guitar Hack merch. There's cups, mugs. There's T-shirts. There's hoodies. All that good stuff below. There's also a PayPal down there as well. I have a Guitar Hack Facebook page, and I have a Guitar Hack group, Instagram. All those links are below, so please check those out. I put out a video earlier today, which is all original music. So check that video out. That went up today at about 5 o'clock. And I want to thank Pete, sorry. Is there anything you wanted to mention before we wrap this up?
Just if you haven't, guys, just hop on over to YouTube, Sea of Tranquility Prague, and check us out. I've also got a second channel called Comic Book Geezers. If you're into like vintage comics from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, my buddy Wild Bill and I do that show every week, twice a week. So I got that going on too. And then there's the webzine, www.seaoftranquility.org, where we've got about 23,000 reviews of all sorts of albums, range going back to the early 2000s. So check it out.
Cool. So I want to thank Mike and Pete again for doing this.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. It was a good time, and maybe we'll do this again. We'll pick another band, and we'll let Mike go first. We'll let Mike go first next time.
I'm going to get picked on for as long as.
All right, people. Take care. Guys, hang on for a minute. Take care, everybody, and we'll catch you soon. All right.
Bye, everyone.
All right.